What is the scandal of the summer?
Absolutely. So earlier this month, on August 6th, Tom Alexandrovich, a bigwig in the Israeli cybersecurity apparatus, specifically, he's the executive director of the Cyber Defense Division. He was caught up in an FBI-backed sting in Las Vegas. He alongside 7 other men. They were allegedly trying to have carnal relations with someone they thought was a 15-year-old child. Of course, it was actually an undercover agent posing as that minor. Now, unlike the other 7 men who were caught up in this sting, Alexandrovich promptly paid his $10,000 bail
Mm.
and immediately jetted home to Israel. Now, I want to say from the outset, the State Department has vociferously denied that the Trump administration intervened on his behalf or on Israel's behalf. But as I write in the piece, as the days, as the weeks have gone on, that denial seems increasingly implausible. And we can get
Mm.
into the reasons why later. But yeah, suffice it to say, I have spoken to a number of criminal defense attorneys, legal experts, and they all say in a case like this, with a charge, a felony as serious as this, that carries with it the potential of 10 years behind bars, especially for a foreign national to be involved, there is no world in which his passport would not have been seized. There is no world in which there would not have been significant travel restrictions, that he wouldn't have had, say, GPS monitoring. It is just very clear to me and to a lot of observers that something fishy is going on. And I'll just end now by saying, Pam Bondi and the U.S. Attorney for Nevada, Sigal Chadha, they've crowed about how they're outraged and they've expressed this moral indignation. And what's curious, of course, is that if they really were so outraged, you'd think that Donald Trump by now, as this scandal has gone on for 2-3 weeks, would loudly, publicly, or at the very least on Truth Social say, Benjamin Netanyahu, return this man, extradite this man immediately. Crickets, nothing.
And you mentioned in your piece, you mentioned that like they could easily, or Donald Trump could pick up the phone. But I want to read what you said. If you were to lab engineer a scandal to hurt Donald Trump, this is exactly what would be concocted. Just consider the buzzwords at play: Trump, Israel, pedophilia, corruption. Each and every one is catnip for the manosphere, swing voters, and the left. Forget a gift horse. This is a gift unicorn grazing in Democrats' backyard, just waiting to be weaponized. And yet, crickets. Why?
Yeah. I say later that it's understandable that MAGA doesn't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. I should hat tip, I suppose, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Well, I was going to
Um,
go there. Yeah.
she has tweeted a few times about this. Jack Posobiec, the Pizzagate guy, has complained on social media, but for the most part, everyone is silent. To your point earlier, Fox News certainly has not covered this. But I'm here scratching my head, just dumbfounded as to why Democrats have not said anything about this. I should say I need to give massive credit to our friends Crystal and Sagar over at Breaking Points. They have
Yeah.
been on this like a dog on a bone. There have been some other folks who've done individual small segments. There was a really telling moment on CNN last week, I want to say on Thursday night or possibly Wednesday night, when Anna Kasparian raised this on that god awful CNN panel where they just scream at each other mindlessly for an hour. Um, Raises it, no one touches it. They just immediately go to commercial break. And so,
It was
yeah,
it was Abby Phillips' late night show, and Anna Kasparian talks about it, and she's basically confronting Scott Jennings, who, if you recall, did the whole cushy trip to Israel and then got stuck there, right? And she kind of pressed him on it, and then instead of doing any follow up, Abby Phillips, like, literally, like, you could see the clip, folks. She just switches like immediately. It's like,
yeah,
meh, and then it was over.
yeah. And so just circling back, I understand why MAGA's not touching this. I don't really understand why the media isn't touching this. But then I really do not understand why Democrats aren't touching this. Because if you want to talk about really the only matter that has hurt Donald Trump in this second term, it is Epstein. And
Yeah.
and of course his support for Netanyahu and the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And again, if you want to talk about just the perfect political weapon to hammer the president, it is this. It involves him very likely directly. It involves Israel. It involves pedophiles, and it involves gross corruption of the highest order. And so it's astounding to me. I write in the piece, if Republicans are ignoring this story out of self-preservation, Democrats are ignoring it out of fear. And it could be fear of a number of factors. It could be fear of AIPAC and primary challengers. It could be fear of baseless accusations of anti-Semitism. It could also just be that Democrats have this sort of upper middle class respectability politics, or at least they've developed it in the last decade, 2 decades or so, where they don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to mire around in the muck of anything that even has the patina, has the veneer of a conspiracy theory. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is a real court case, real charges, a real fugitive. I don't understand why they feel like if they do this, they're putting on the tinfoil hat of QAnon. It's bullshit.
And folks, 500 people joining us on a Sunday already. Thank you. And some people are asking, "Whoa, I just joined. What are you talking about?" Uh, we have this huge scandal, and Peter's one of the very few people who's actually written about it. It's a piece in Zeteo. Why aren't Democrats capitalizing on the scandal of the summer? And for those who joined us late, really quick clip notes is earlier in the month, August 6th, one of Israel's cybersecurity executives in the government was arrested, cybersecurity official, arrested in Las Vegas trying to solicit a 15-year-old on the internet for sex. That is pedophilia. That is illegal. That is trying to have sex with a minor. Thankfully, that 15-year-old was actually an undercover agent posing. It was an operation, FBI-backed sting operation. He gets caught along with several other men, but then he pays $10,000 in bail and then just goes to Israel. And everyone's like, "Wait, what?" And a few people, just very few people, have been on this. One of them, Saga, who's the co-host of Crystal Ball, who's been on the show before. He's been on this. And then, Pete wrote this. Peter wrote this piece of like, well, Democrats, this is like a layup for you. Like it has everything: pedophilia, Trump soft on crime, Epstein, Israel. You got the Quinnipiac poll, which we'll talk about in a second, and just silence. And so we can only speculate why. Maybe it literally is just incompetence, right?
Mm.
They've proven to be politically incompetent, but also let's just forget about the political strategy for a second. But if there is a government official high up who comes to this country and tries to rape American kids, a story that gets lost even with Epstein, Peter, is that these powerful men and Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman, raped girls for decades.
Yep.
Right? They raped girls for decades, and these girls came out. When it came to the Farmer Sisters, they talked to Vicky Ward, journalist, and they were on the record. They exposed themselves, and then Vanity Fair, 20 years ago, folks, as Vicky turned in her piece on Epstein 20 years ago, a Graydon Carter of Vanity Fair was bullied by Epstein and pulled it. In 2008, Alex Acosta gave the sweetheart deal to Epstein after all these women went on the record. They were not informed. And then Epstein gets his sweetheart deal, that something that we've never seen before until Ghislaine Maxwell, right? And so if you're a parent, oh, I don't know, or if you're in Las Vegas, let's just talk about it from that angle. Like, what the hell? What are we doing to protect our children? Oh, if you're an Israeli pedophile from the government, oh, okay, no problem.
Yeah. I think one thing that's going to be key here is to monitor what happens to the 7 other men that were caught up again in this FBI-backed sting in Las Vegas. What's interesting is that per Sagar's reporting over at Breaking Points, again, gotta tip my hat to him because he's done a great job. Those 7 gentlemen faced criminal complaints nearly a week before Alexandrovich. Clearly, something is going on. Clearly, something fishy is happening. One of those 7 men, I should also note, was a pastor. Uh, again, it has everything. It is so gross. It is so terrible. It is so sordid. And to your point from earlier, Look, I'm a big believer. What's the old quote? Never attribute to malice that which can be explained away by incompetence. Maybe it's Democrats being incompetent. Maybe they haven't tuned into breaking points in the last week or two. But like, this is being served up to them on a silver platter, and so it just kind of it confounds the mind. Why, Catherine Cortez Masto, Democratic Nevada senator, why Jackie Rosen, another Democratic senator, why even, say, the folks in the Oversight Committee in the House, Ro Khanna, who I think in general has done a really, really good job highlighting this Epstein saga. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I believe on Wednesday of this coming week, he is going to have a joint press
September 3rd.
conference with Thomas Massie with 10 new Epstein victims who have never spoken publicly before. So clearly, in certain cases, Democrats are not afraid to dig into the muck when there's a real story there, when there are real victims there. But for whatever reason, this one they don't want to touch.
You know, I had Ro on, I think, a week and a half ago, and we went back and forth on why I believe Israel is committing a genocide. It's important for it to be named that way. And then he talked about September 3rd, and I was talking to the Epstein victims and survivors. And I reached out to his team to see if he has some time next week to talk to me. So I'll bring it up with him.
Hey,
I also have an interview scheduled, folks, on Wednesday with a conversation for the Left Hook with Congressman Raskin. So I'll ask him about that as well. Let's see what it says. Congressman Raskin, Jewish American, obviously, it's very integral to his identity. Israel's important to him. I don't want to do gotchas with him. I think he, does fantastic work, but I have to ask him this also, right? Like, the Quinnipiac poll that has come out, which is just devastating. I mean, I've never seen these types of numbers before in my life when it comes to Democratic Party eroding support for Israel, and the majority of Americans and a majority of Democrats now calling it a genocide. Talk to us about the poll, because
yeah.
the poll gives Democrats maneuvering. Because again, we don't know. For those of us who are joining us, we don't know why Democrats haven't gone with this layup. Like, maybe it's political malpractice, maybe because they don't know what's happening, maybe because they don't have leadership, maybe because, oh, I don't know. Last month, Democratic leaders met with war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu when he appeared, literally took a photo with him. Schumer, Booker, uh, Adam Schiff, one of the senators, Jackie Rosen from Nevada, right? So we don't know, folks. But talk to us about how the poll numbers show, hey, lane's wide open.
Yeah, I think from the outset, we should say that Democrats, this is just the right thing to do.
Of
We
course.
should demand accountability. We should demand justice in all cases, but especially against pedophiles. But okay, we're realists. Sometimes you put the right thing to do aside and you have to be practical in politics, as awful as that sounds. Well, guess what? It's good politics too. Um,
Yeah.
there was, in the wake of that UN-backed report from last week, indicating that the Palestinian people are victims of a, quote, entirely man-made famine that's about to get a whole lot worse, exponentially worse, is I believe the language the UN report used, if aid is not immediately let in. A new Quinnipiac poll finds that 50% of all registered voters
Wow.
believe that Israel is committing genocide, and 77% of all Democrats believe Israel is committing genocide. And so what I argue in the piece is one, Democrats are ignoring their own base, the overwhelming majority of their own base, which, yes, is political malpractice. But then clearly there is an opportunity to reach out to non-conventional Democratic voters who are bought in on this story. Look, I don't like much of anything that Alex Jones says. I don't like much of anything that a lot of the personalities in the manosphere say. But this is a way to make inroads into the voters who listen to those types of public personalities. Um, there was a great piece penned by Matt Iglesias on his slow, boring Substack sometime last year. He talked about the crank realignment theory. And as Iglesias puts it, if you rewind the clock, say 20 years, your anti vax aunt or your jet fuel can't melt steel beams uncle were just as likely to be found at a Greenpeace protest as a Tea Party rally. And what's
Mm.
happened over the last decade, 2 decades, is that all of the kooks, the cranks, and as Iglesias defines cranks, it's folks who are sort of firmly anti-establishment in their political outlook, and very often that anti-establishment outlook is fueled by paranoia. All of those cranks have ended up in the Republican Party, where 20 years ago there was a pretty equal spread of cranks on the left and the right. Now they're all on the right. And what Democrats need to wake up to is that the country's lost its mind. Between
Yep.
Fox News and TikTok, our brains are cooked.
Yep.
And in that reality, you either admit defeat or you realize, okay, we need to start messaging and communicating with these cranks. And as I say in the piece, sometimes the cranks are right. Not always. Sometimes they're true tinfoiled hat loons. But if you think about how we've seen American administrations lie this country into war, we've seen American administrations gaslight the public on terrible trade deals that have gutted the middle class. And we've seen, most notably, this administration protect international sex traffickers. Um, and so all I mean to say is, yeah, oftentimes cranks are out to lunch, but not always. Sometimes they do have a point, and I think they definitely have one with this story, 100%.
And the thing is, by not capitalizing on it, you cede the ground to cranks who, once out of 100 they bat and they hit a home run. You unfortunately are saddled with the 99 terrible crank-like, anti-Semitic, hateful shit,
Yeah.
which people gloss over, folks. People gloss over. We live in the United States of amnesia. I'll give you an example. Yesterday there was a big Muslim American conference in Chicago. I didn't go, and because Marjorie Taylor Greene and I believe Tucker Carlson, who are part of the crankosphere, very influential, have been very, if you will, one of the few mainstream voices, both within Republican Party and also, if you will, media, who have called out this scandal that you wrote about, who have called out Ted Cruz and his warmongering, who have called out AIPAC, right? This Muslim American crowd of otherwise intelligent folks. An imam came out and said, we have to stop the genocide and we have to stop, the influence of AIPAC and we have to do what's right. And, at least we have some people speaking out like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson. You know what the crowd did? Which just like made me just shake my head. They applauded. They applauded because they kind of just forgot of the, racism and just how it worked now, folks. It's the United States of amnesia. Donald Trump was elected twice. The same guy who lied to us during a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic, right? So you have to meet people where they are and then lead them. You have to lead them. You have to take the lead. You have to plant the flag, and then people believe you, become more authentic, become more trustworthy, and then you call out the cranks and say, okay, yeah, they were right on this. They're horrific on everything else. But
100%.
again, because we live in disinformation and conspiracy theories, people say, you know what? I hear this a lot, Peter. I'm sure you do from very smart people. I don't agree with everything that person says. They were right about this, though. I don't agree with everything that person says, but you know what? They're the only ones talking about this. It's just where people are right now, right? So
Yep.
for me, I'm like, this is like a wide open lane. You said layup, right? Let's just go corporate media for a second. Corporate media, news channels, your ratings are in the tank. People are cutting the cord. If it bleeds, it leads. You got a foreign country, you got an FBI sting operation, you got pedophilia, you got potential corruption, you got Democrats and Republicans potentially, colluding to give this person a free pass, and you have an unpopular war in Gaza. How come there's no news coverage on this, Peter? How come you're the only article that I've seen?
I wish I could tell you. Again, I'll raise some of the things that I talked about earlier in our chat. I believe a good deal of it, at least on the Democratic side, is the threat of AIPAC-funded primary challengers. I think that's significant. I think there are a lot of folks who are terrified of baseless accusations of anti-Semitism, especially in a case like this, where the faith of this Israeli top intel official has nothing to do with the matter whatsoever. He tried to have sex. He tried to lure a person who he thought was a 15-year-old into, again, carnal relations. Has nothing to do with his Jewish identity whatsoever. And then again, I think this last part applies to both Democratic politicians and the media, there's still like this resistance, this bizarre upper middle class respectability politics driven resistance to talking about anything that seems untoward or in any way like possibly tinged with conspiracy. But I say again, Waj, there's no conspiracy here. Or I suppose to the extent there is a conspiracy, it's the cover up of how this guy was able to flee the country. There's no conspiracy in the fact that we had an Israeli top intel official who tried to lure who he thought was a 15-year-old girl into sex, and then he fled the country. All of that happened. We have the court records, we have the arrest records. I don't understand why no one's talking about this.
Can you talk to us about the Las Vegas Attorney General? Because I think she's an interesting character in all this.
Yes. So her name is Sigal Chattah. And from my understanding, she is a very far right, extremely anti Palestinian Trump appointee who was born in Israel. But even she, I think, recognized there was chum in the water in the early days as this scandal was brewing. And she put out on social media, quote, "The individual who fled our country should have had his passport seized by state authorities. He must be returned immediately to face justice." She then subsequently notes how she got on the phone with AG Pam Bondi. She said Bondi was, quote unquote, outraged. She also said that Bondi reportedly, or rather allegedly, got on the phone with Kash Patel and asked Kash Patel to get on this, what the FBI director is going to do to try and extradite a foreign national. Okay, sure. Um,
Well, the whole time is you're the Attorney General of Nevada. Like, why did this happen under your watch? Another scandal.
Also, the idea that Kash Patel would not have been one of the very first administration officials notified after this foreign national was picked up in an FBI sting, again, confounds the mind. It does not work. The
I mean,
logic isn't logic.
if you wanted a low hanging fruit, and if you wanted to make the case, as let's just say, if you're a Democrat, if you're a strategist, if you're corporate media, and you don't want to take on the big fish, you want to take a smaller fish, I would go after the Nevada Attorney General. Right there, you go. You're the Attorney General. How could you allow this to happen? You're the boss. You're the top cop. Who have you held responsible? Who did allow this to happen? Have they resigned? Have you asked them to resign? Have you done an internal investigation? This is just me top of my head, Peter, right?
Yeah.
Like how? Who? Someone must have signed off to allow this man to go back to Israel. It just doesn't happen, right? Especially if you have an FBI sting and you're one of the 8 men caught in it and the other 7 men are in prison and it was over pedophilia. You can't just all of a sudden like give $10,000 and leave. It just can't happen. Just like when Ghislaine Maxwell was transferred from Florida to Texas, somebody had to authorize her, status being changed that allowed her a sweetheart deal, which is not given to anybody else. For her then to go to this, minimum security camp, where now, thanks to Allison Gill's reporting, I was talking to her about this. I've talked to her about this a while. Is that she now is eligible for work release? Someone like that doesn't happen, Peter. Right? Like there's
Yeah.
someone there who is either instructed to do something or then makes the decision to do it. So that to me, right there, is like a trail. Right there, just something for a Democrat to come on TV and say, "Okay, Attorney General Chata, who." Authorized this? Have you investigated them? Have they resigned? Have you asked them? We want names. We demand justice because we want to protect our kids. Has anything like that happened?
No, no. The only real update we've had in this case so far is on August 27th, which, if I'm not mistaken, was last Wednesday. Alexandrovich was meant to have his first appearance in court. He did not show. He is still in Israel. He did not even dial up virtually. He didn't hop on Skype, didn't hop up on Zoom. He's gone. In his place was his lawyer, David Chesnoff. Now, I was not familiar with Mr. Chesnoff before. I don't know if he's necessarily a national name. He is widely considered to be not only the most talented, but also the most expensive criminal defense attorney in the state of Nevada.
Wow.
Who is paying for Chesnov? We do not know. That is something else that we should potentially be looking into. Now, Chesnov and the judge, we know this for a fact because this hearing was open to the press, had a pretty explosive, pretty fiery exchange where the judge said, "What do you effing mean that your client is not here? What do you mean that he is still in the country of Israel?" Chesnov did not say this explicitly, I want to be clear, but intimated, suggested that he had come to some sort of compromise with the state attorney, that his client did not have to be present, and so therefore he told his client, Alexandrovich,
Mm.
to not be present. The
Mm.
judge responds, "I don't care about whatever potential quote unquote compromise you made with the state attorney. You're dealing with me. You're in my court. When I say that your client needs to be physically present, he needs to be physically present." So, how this continues to play out, we do not know. We do know that now the judge has set another hearing for I believe, towards the middle of next week. And we know that Chesnov asked if Alexandrovich could attend that one virtually before potentially appearing physically in person at a subsequent hearing down the road. The judge allowed for this second hearing for Alexandrovich to be virtual. Um, it's just messy, though. And watch, if I could give one quick monologue, this has been a bee in my bonnet all day. So
Monologue away.
I was not an expert, as I don't imagine many of your listeners are, in Israeli extradition. So prior to 1999, Israel's answer to any U.S. or really any other country's ask for potentially a fugitive to be returned to their country was F off. No, not going to happen. No way. The reason why that changed in 1999 is that there was a 17-year-old named Sam Scheinbein
Yeah.
who committed a grisly murder. He strangled a 19-year-old in the state of Maryland. He subsequently burned the body and then dismembered the corpse. It was awful. Scheinbein was an American citizen, but his father was, I believe, a dual American-Israeli citizen. So his father, once it was clear that his son was going to be arrested for this, fled to Israel. And due to, credit where credit is due, immense diplomatic pressure from the Clinton administration, Scheinbein was never returned to the States. He never felt, or rather never experienced or received proper justice for his grisly murder. But the Israelis did agree to prosecute and ultimately jail him in Israel. Now, after that whole affair, the Clinton administration and subsequently sort of just the American political establishment realized, okay, this is not going to happen again. We cannot have this one country on the planet where folks can commit the most horrific acts and then flee and find political refuge or refuge generally. And so since 1999, there have been some extradition. There has been rather a extradition agreement between the U.S. and Israel, but it's still unbelievably slow. There have been some cases where folks who have fled to Israel have managed to fight in court for 6, 7, 10, 11 years before finally being sent to face justice for their crimes. So all this to say, I unfortunately find it more likely than not that we're never going to see this guy again. Insofar as I mean
Done.
in a criminal justice angle, I do not think he'll set foot in a U.S. courtroom ever again.
I want to do an important correction, fact correction. I unfortunately said that, and thank you, someone called us out. Twice I said that Sigil Chata was Nevada's attorney general. She is a U.S. attorney in Nevada. And she's the one that the right wing started blaming in particular because they said, hey, you have significant ties to Israel, and you have big donors who also have colorful criminal histories with significant ties to Israel. And how come this was allowed to happen under your watch? The Attorney General is Aaron Ford. Same question to the Attorney General, Aaron Ford, who's a Democrat, right? Like, yo, this is
Yep.
a big. I would say I try to be equal and fair on the show. Both Aaron Ford, the Attorney General, and Sigil Chata, U.S. Attorney, in Nevada have to answer these questions. The reason why Sigil Chata, I think, has been called out is because the right wing started calling her out because, as you all know, there is an anti-Semitic strain in the right wing, which I've been trying to warn a lot of my friends and colleagues and individuals who I knew were Zionists or identify Zionists. I'm like, the alliance that Israel is making with the white Christian evangelists and the Republican Party, I don't think is going to end well. And they're like, nah, yeah, whatever. Well, Sigil Chata is the one now that everyone's focusing on because, again, she's the acting U.S. attorney, and of course because of her donors, and because, as Peter said in his piece, her very, very anti-Palestinian, pro-Israel bias, and the fact that she was born in Israel, and because it was the right wing that actually called her out, which is what forced, if you will, the government, the District of Nevada, to come out and with her statement. Right, the United States Attorney's Office, District of Nevada, was just August 18th. She had to release a statement, a quote, and her statement was, for those who are joining us late, last week, Tom Atrium Alexandrovich was arrested in a Nevada Internet Crimes Against Children joint operation, and he was booked into the Henderson Detention Center. This important multi-agency operation targeted child sex predators who preyed upon the most vulnerable members of our communities. As a result of the operation, the Clark County District Attorney's Office is handling the prosecution, end quote. That was August 18th. And for those who have been following us, Peter is here and saying, well, that is really official. He's still in Israel. He has hired the most expensive defense attorney in Nevada. He did not show up either virtually or in person for his hearing. The other 7 people who were caught up in this thing are still in prison, right? Or on bail.
I am not positive on that. I can say
But
that they all faced criminal complaints almost a week prior to Alexandrovich.
okay, exactly. But they're here. And folks, the question is, why is it that crank Marjorie Taylor Greene is the only one on top of this, and also Crystal Ball and Sagar, and her co-host Sagar actually has been on it like a hawk, and Peter's the only other person I've seen. If there's other people, I'd love to see it. I did see a piece on American Prospect a couple of days ago on Sigil Chata and why she is a very troublesome figure in this. And they just followed the donors and the money and her statements about Israel and Palestinians, and you're like, okay. And then these are the questions. Because of this U.S. attorney's close ties to Israel, was that what did it? Who? We still don't know why and who, how. How does a guy who is an Israeli government official come to this country? The guy's a cybersecurity expert, and he's caught trying to solicit a 15-year-old who, thank God, was an FBI agent posing as a 15-year-old, gets arrested, and flees after just paying $10,000. Like, still, Peter, no one knows. And again, I want for those who are joining us late, we still don't know who authorized Ghislaine Maxwell. This is a huge story, folks. Like, keep your focus on this. What? Why? Why the hell is Ghislaine Maxwell, a woman who was just about to begin or just started her 20-year sentence, a woman who groomed and raped girls alongside Jeffrey Epstein, why is she in a minimum security camp? Who authorized it? I don't know, Peter. Some basic questions, and the fact that I know, what you said. Thank you for bringing about that history. This is where the cranks. Gosh, we live in such a weird timeline. For those who've been following, they know that Israel has been a safe haven for some pedophiles who are allowed to go there if they're Jewish, especially, and they get protected. And I think another reason why, Peter, even though this is well known, a reason why people are so wary of bringing it up, because if you bring this up and bring the receipts like you did, like literally so many people, for example, just like this man, uh, you get accused of anti-Semitism, right? And people are like, shit, man, I don't want to deal with that. And I want to be sensitive also. So there comes a point, though, Peter, where, and like you mentioned, bringing it back full circle, these are just facts. Like,
Yeah.
you just have to literally read the facts and be like, why? And then let's really bring it back full circle, Peter. Why a special standard for Israel? Why a
Mhm.
double standard? And what's the answer to that? I don't know.
Yeah. I want to repeat one thing that I said towards the top for those of you who may have joined late. We don't have any hard evidence right now that the Trump administration intervened on this man's behalf or on Israel's behalf. Um, but here's the thing. Given how salacious and how damaging this story is, given the fact that it is rooted in very clear, very concrete facts, there's no conspiracy. Trump could come out today.
Yep.
He could come out first thing tomorrow on True Social or in the White House, former Rose Garden, now at the frickin' Panera Bread patio that he's turned it into. And he could say, Benjamin Netanyahu, return this man to face justice. And what's funny, of course, Waj, if he did that, I think it would tamp down a lot of criticism that he's received about how he's handled Ghislaine Maxwell and more broadly the Epstein files. But he won't do it. And I think it's really important for folks to ask themselves again and again why Trump won't do it. Why will Trump not demand that Israel extradite this guy back to the country?
Peter, can't Attorney General Pam Bondi do it on her own also?
She could certainly try. I think there's a lot more weight if Trump comes out and demands it. I mean, it is a cult of personality after all. I don't know. I don't know how much sway Bondi has, but
But
yeah,
to
there are a
protect
number of different
herself,
avenues they could pursue.
to protect her, even Kash Patel, right? To protect herself and her reputation, which has gone in the toilet with the MAGA faithful who have been radicalized on the QAnon conspiracy. This is just smart politics for them also. CCC, we're
100%.
actually going against pedophiles, and they still don't do it, folks. And then I also want to say, because I'm like you, I separate fact from speculation. I try to correct the record. For example, for those who are joining us late, I once or twice accidentally said that the Attorney General of Nevada was Sigel Chata. Actually, she's she's the acting U.S. State's Attorney of Nevada. The Attorney General is Aaron Ford. But we also have to look at the evidence before our eyes and look at Zoran Mamdani, like another layup, Peter, a layup. This guy's popular. He's increasing in the polls. Clearly, he seems like he's going to have the momentum and the votes to be the next mayor. And folks, as of today, Jeffries, Schumer, and Gillibrand have yet to, I've never seen this happen before. They have yet to endorse and embrace the Democratic nominee who is surging to as the candidate. Peter, like,
You know what I guarantee you is going to happen? This is a bit of a weird tangent, but I was just listening to this earlier today. Our buddies over at the Bulwark, Sarah Longwell, Tim Miller, and JVL were having a conversation about how Sarah used to be, um, I believe, the executive head of the board of directors over at Lob Cabin Republicans. My oh my! But she was
wow,
saying how in 2016 she, along with the entire executive board, refused to endorse Donald Trump. It was unanimous. And then Trump wins, of course. And a bunch of these cynical, hyper ambitious, bad faith fuckers from around the country and Lob Cabin Republicans go to Washington and they say, we want to retroactively endorse Donald Trump now that he's won. And Sarah, to her
wow.
credit, is like, y'all are sociopaths. And she says, I don't even want to be challenged. I don't need to contest this. I'm just stepping down because y'all are freaks. And I think the same thing is going to happen, or a similar thing is going to happen in this situation, where I think Mamdani is going to sweep the floor with Cuomo and with Adams.
Oh
And
yeah.
all of these folks are going to look like they're going to have a tremendous amount of egg on their face. And they're going to pretend, they're going to put out some statement or try to rewrite history to suggest that they were Mamdani's biggest boosters the entire time.
Yeah, but
Uh,
they're hurting themselves. They're hurting their reputation. People have not forgotten, and also it's not just the leadership. Also, Elisa Slotkin and Cory Booker, when they've been asked about it, I don't know if you've seen. They're like, "Oh, we don't. We're just simple senators. We don't talk about other races. We don't. What's New York? Oh, I don't know. Huh? I'm not making this up, folks. Just go listen to Cory Booker and Elisa Slotkin when they've been asked about this. However, when they're asked about, oh, I don't know, other races, such as in Georgia, which is very far away from Michigan and New Jersey, they had no problem endorsing Ossoff. I think all of this is tied, folks. I think this is what you're witnessing, and I've said this before. I just want you all to keep your eyes on this, and especially as the Quinnipiac poll and the breakdown that Peter gave for us is, I think Israel-Palestine has now become, if you will, a wedge issue, and it has become a litmus test for Democrats moving forward. I think this genocide and this response to Hamas's terrorist attack on October 7th by Israel, in which Israel has killed, and this is a low number, 63,000 civilians, has radicalized a generation in 2 years. It has changed politics fundamentally in a way that I never would have imagined. I'm 44 years old. And based on the numbers, increasingly Democrats are like, if you support AIPAC, if you take AIPAC money, if you support Netanyahu, we're done with you. And you're also seeing, as of this week, more and more former AIPAC supported Democrats are now openly saying, Peter, I don't know if you've seen this,
I
oh, we're
did,
not
yeah.
taking AIPAC money. And then also with Mamdani, folks, it's because of Israel Palestine. Let's just be honest. It's about Israel Palestine, and it's also because he wants to, help people. And another litmus test for the Democrats, and I think why they're failing, is will you give up the corporate teat? Will you give up the oligarchy? Will you actually stand for the winning message that is Mamdani, that is AOC, that is also in a really perverse way, Peter? And just folks, before you throw up in your mouth, Donald Trump ran on an anti-establishment message. It was all bullshit, but that's the message he ran on. The outsider, right?
Yeah.
So it's all bullshit. Whereas Bernie and others were more sincere and principled. But it was we live in the United States of amnesia, folks. It's cranks. It's like cranks and nuts and kooks. This is where we are right now. And so I think, Peter, the fact that they're unwilling, and by they I mean the Democratic leadership, still, you see a civil war happening. They're unwilling to give up the teat of corporate money, AIPAC. You saw that Richie Torres interview just a couple of days ago with Adam Freeland. Just should be a political suicide interview where he just comes off looking like a sociopath, incapable of even folks acknowledging Palestinian humanity. And Adam is Jewish American, who's sitting there saying, "Yo, man, I grew up loving Israel. Like I'm a Jew. This pains me. Can't you just like acknowledge that what's bad?" And Richie Torres was like Terminator from the first Terminator. He's like, "But Hamas, but Hamas." I mean, just I think this is what's being played out with Zoran Mamdani. It's being played out with AIPAC. It's being played out with the photo that was taken last month with Schumer and Senator Jackie Rosen of Nevada, taking a photo with Benjamin Netanyahu, war criminal. And I think it's playing out right now in this it's a remarkable story, folks. I know Zeteo has it paywalled, but if for the almost 1,000 people who are joining us, I strongly recommend going back and listening to this conversation. I've been talking for 45 minutes to Peter Rothpletz. He's a writer, a journalist, and the article he wrote is "Why Aren't Democrats Capitalizing on the Scandal of the Summer? Trump, Israel, Pedophilia, Corruption." If you were to lab engineer a scandal to hurt the president and the GOP, this is exactly what you would concoct. And these are all facts. On August 6th, Tom Atrium Alexandrovich, a bigwig in Israel's cybersecurity apparatus, was arrested in Las Vegas alongside 7 other men during an FBI-backed sting for trying to canoodle with a 15-year-old boy. Thankfully, that was an undercover agent posing as a 15-year-old child. He promptly paid $10,000 bail and jetted home to Israel. Who allowed it? How come he did it? How come he was able to get away with it? Who is going to hold him accountable? What about the U.S. attorney, Sigel Chata? Hell, what I try to be fair. What about the Attorney General, Aaron Ford? What about the 2 Democratic senators from Nevada? What about Attorney General Pam Bondi? What about Kash Patel? What about Donald Trump? They're tough on crime and they hate pedophiles, even though they let this man flee and they gave Ghislaine Maxwell, a pass and a minimum security camp transfer. So Peter and I are asking the same question. Why, oh, why aren't Democrats and corporate media literally running with this layup of a story that will win you over not just Democrats, but also independents and also Republicans who have been radicalized by their leaders with the QAnon conspiracy? And for those who joined us late, Marjorie Taylor Greene, sadly, is, I think, the only elected official who's run on it, the crank. And you have Crystal Ball and Sagar, independent media, who've run on it. And Peter is the one asking these questions. This is where we are, folks. This is where we are. Peter, a final word to you.
Waj, was an honor to be on. It's very weird. When I was writing monologues for Mehdi at MSNBC, it was such a joy to see you hang out with him on air. So it's quite surreal. I wish it was not under such sordid, monstrous circumstances, but it was still so lovely to join you. Um, yeah, to your audience, I would just say, do not let the corporate media, do not let Democrats, do not let the MAGA crowd drop, bury, muzzle this story. It is a huge deal. Um, And yes, to just repeat what you said a second ago, Waj, if you could wish upon a star and be bestowed with the perfect scandal to hurt Donald Trump, it would be something like this, something that includes Trump and Israel and pedophiles and blatant naked corruption. And it's confounding that no one has done anything about this. The media is complicit, Democrats are complicit, and of course, Donald Trump is most complicit of all. I will say for the third time now, he could bleat out on True Social right now, Benjamin Netanyahu, send this man back. And the fact that he has not done it, that he's not doing it now, and I guarantee you he will not do it in the future, is very telling, and that's all that you need to know.
Peter, people have asked where they can follow you. Shamelessly promote yourself, sir.
Thank you. I am at Peter Twinklage, like the actor Peter Dinklage, but with a twink instead on Twitter.
That's
I'm
hilarious.
I'm at Prothplease, Prothplz on Instagram, and then you can find my work regularly in The Guardian and in Zeteo.
And folks, again, this is a fantastic piece. It's called "Why Aren't Democrats Capitalizing on the Scandal of the Summer" on Zeteo. For those who have joined us late, nearly 1,000 people on a Sunday to talk about such a disturbing news story, but important news story. Thank you. It will be up later on the Left Hook. It's about a 45-minute conversation I'm having with Peter about this. I think it's a really big story. I really do. And I want to just end with, again, kids. They were going after kids, and thank God it was an FBI sting operation. So it makes me think, Peter, if this man has come to America many times, how many times did he do this before?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And guess what, folks? He got away with it. He got away with it under the administration that is allegedly so tough on crime that they have unleashed 2,000 National Armed Guard members right here in Washington, D.C., but they're perfectly fine giving a pass to pedophiles like Ghislaine Maxwell and Israel's cybersecurity executive, Tom Atrium Alexandrovich. Here we are, folks, upside down. Thanks so much for taking the time, Peter, during your vacation with your family. I really appreciate it. And for everyone else, this will be up in an hour. There's no paywalls. It's the Left Hook. It's independent. If you have a couple of bucks, become a paid subscriber. If you don't, I get it. Just become a free subscriber. And then once this interview is out, please share it. Peter really, I think he was very fair. I thought I was very fair. It's not just Republicans, it's also Democrats, also corporate media. I think we call out everyone. And it disgusts me to my soul that I've had to agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene at least twice in the past couple of months, Peter. But that's where we are. Hairball. Folks, take care of yourself. Be kind. And please, oh, please don't be a fascist. Take care, Peter. Thanks. Enjoy your break.
Thanks, brother.